Welcome to the channel, everybody. Today, I am going to be talking about A Quiet Place Part 2 and why this is an insane sequel that just flat out delivers on everything that I personally want in a sequel. So, like the original movie, this was a first watch for me. And just a little heads up, if you haven't seen this movie, there will be a ton of spoilers in this video, so you have been warned. So, A Quiet Place Part 2 pretty much premiered at like the worst time possible for a movie. You know, a few years ago during that whole COVID thing. This movie premiered in New York in March of 2020, and then of course had to be kind of postponed and delayed about a year, and then was finally released in 2021. And this movie had 3 times the budget of the original. I'm sure, you know, obviously because of the success of the original, they're like, we're willing to pump a ton of money into the story, this idea, of course, and just push this even further. This movie had a $60 million budget and ended up making about $300 million. So similar to the original, very successful, regardless of everything that was happening with movie theaters and everything that just was happening with COVID, of course, you know. And once again, damn, does this franchise know how to open a movie. So right off the bat in this movie, we open and we see Lee again. Of course, the dad from the first movie who died at the end of that movie. And now it's day one. So as an audience, you know, I didn't see any trailers for this movie or anything. So going in right away, I'm like, okay, is this going to be like a little bit of a prequel? But right away, we see this whole day one thing. So, and once again, I mean, talking intros here, this is just a masterful intro in so many different ways. I mean, from the way it's shot with these like really cool one takes that they do here and there. I mean, the acting in the intro, just, I mean, even the extras, the characters who don't have a lot of lines or a lot of things going on, amazing work. The cop who gets killed at the end of the intro, amazing work. But I mean, you get to see, you know, Cillian Murphy there for a minute, you know, and you're like, okay, that's Cillian Murphy just right there, just in the, you know, in the crowd at the baseball game, no big deal. But the suspense in the intro, the setting of the intro, this all-American small town feel. They're at a baseball game. It's shortly before the 4th of July. You know, it's just, it also gives like a lot of those like Last of Us vibes to it. The intro to The Last of Us. I, you know, couldn't help but think about that when I was watching the intro to this movie, but so damn good. I also thought about Interstellar, because in Interstellar, of course, like when they see everything kind of going on in the sky a bit, kind of similar to this movie. They're both at a baseball game, like right as everything's kind of unfolding in a sense. So kind of feels like Interstellar a little bit there, but also to me, this intro was just such a great creative choice to not only lead us into what happened in the original movie, but also give like the audience just a little sneak peek of how day one looked, but not too much. You know what I mean? Sometimes when you show prequel stuff or flashback stuff, sometimes it can answer questions that we're not really asking for. But in this movie, in the intro, is just such a great balance of both of those things. So, of course, now, you know, at the end of this intro, we see Evelyn reaching for Marcus and just saying, let's go, which is right where we cut off in the first movie. And right away, I'm like, all right, hell yeah, I am here for this. And then boom, we get the title card, right? So now the family is leaving the farm to head towards a fire signal that they saw off in the distance, right? And then the family is walking. They're kind of, you know, they're showing us they're getting out of their element. It's adding a different level of tension. Like, not only is Lee dead now, the guy who really protected them in a lot of ways, they're now kind of on their own. The kids have to grow up even more so than they've had to grow up in the past. And it shows them walking, and they're walking from the path that they've had with the sand so they can walk quietly with their bare feet to now having to walk on a different path. And then they approach this like steel factory, which for a setting in an apocalyptic movie, amazing setting. Love that. But they approach this factory and right away you're like, oh, this is not going to go well. They're climbing through fences and stuff. Like Evelyn's having to climb through a fence with like a baby in her hand and a bag, and she's kind of getting caught. And then she ends up like hitting this tripwire that somebody obviously set to attract the monsters so it could just do the job for them. And the tripwire trips, and then this cord comes down with like a bunch of glass bottles, obviously to make a ton of noise. And she's like, shit, we gotta go. And then Marcus steps on a bear trap. So you're like, damn, what's gonna happen now? So one of the aliens is approaching, and we see this perspective of the sniper watching them. We don't know who it is. We don't know what they're going to do, but clearly they've had some kill shots and they're not taking them. So this person, not probably entirely evil. And then the sniper, of course, turns out to be Cillian Murphy. But the sniper's watching and just like, holy shit, they just killed one of these things. I don't know how they did it, but they just ended up killing one of those things. That's kind of crazy. Cillian Murphy, of course, ends up being the sniper, like I said. I was kind of wondering in the intro, I was like, wait, is that just going to be like a Cillian Murphy little cameo? That would be kind of weird if he doesn't come back for the rest of the movie. Like I said, I have seen no trailers going into this, which I love doing. It just makes it so fresh and it doesn't spoil anything. And they come in, Emmett kind of shows them that he's got this like vault kind of a thing. I mean, I never worked at a steel factory. I don't know what they would use that kind of a thing for, but it's almost like a vault you would see at a bank, but it's really small. Maybe something they would like melt stuff in, steel and whatnot. But anyways, gets everybody in there. And Evelyn's right away like, and it's Cillian Murphy, right? He's got very distinct eyes, but right away she kind of recognizes his voice and is like, okay, take off your mask, show me who you are. Because this person is telling them, you need to leave. You're not going to stay here very long. Everyone is it's a terrible world out there. Everybody's dead. We're on our own. But yeah, eventually, of course, he takes off his mask and she realizes who it is. And she's like, we used to be friends, shows the baby and is like, please help us. And Emmett is essentially just scarred from the world. He has lost his family. His wife sounds like was the last one. It was a woman's name. I can't remember if it's his wife or not, but they were the last one. They just ended up getting sick and they started to, be really loud and in a lot of pain and he just couldn't help himself. But he's clearly just scarred from everything that's happened, obviously, like a lot of us would be. But Emmett's telling them essentially now at this point, there's nothing left. We're the only survivors. There's nothing out there. You know what I mean? You just need to hunker down and I guess just wait to go, essentially. But they eventually on the radio, the kids notice that Frank Sinatra, Beyond the Sea, is playing on the radio. And they're like, that's weird. They kind of freak out a little bit like, oh, damn, music. We haven't heard music in a long time. This is crazy. Which at this point, while Emmett's telling them that essentially we're on our own, nobody else is alive out there, I'm thinking to myself, I've seen a shit ton of post-apocalyptic movies up to this point in my life. You can't tell me that if you guys were able to survive, that some like Navy SEAL, Bear Grylls motherfuckers aren't out there also surviving in the bush. There's definitely some people out there alive too. But what's also interesting in this movie is we're really starting to get to see this evolution of Regan and how many traits she shares with her dad, Lee, but also more of kind of her heartbreak that you can see on her, not only because of what happened to her brother at the beginning of the first movie, of course, but just her journey of being this kid that, can't hear. I'm sure she at times feels like she's just a burden on the family and kind of feels like she has to kind of prove herself in a way, which is why in a lot of cases, she kind of goes off on her own and tries to like prove that she can do things on her own and kind of just being that person who could kind of, in a sense, replace her dad, either if he's not there or if he dies, other than just the son who you would think would just take over the dad's shoes. She wants to prove like I can do this too, but also maybe to make up for some of the mistakes that she's done in the past. So now Regan essentially tracks down where this radio signal came from, and it came from an island off the coast of New York. And, once again, like I said, she goes off on her own. And then while she's walking away, we get this whole train sequence. She approaches this train that's just torn to shit. There's dead bodies all over the place. There's a train derailed with a bunch of holes in it. Clearly, these alien bastards have been all over this. And she goes in, and in like the cabin or something like that, she sees a first aid kit. And immediately like, okay, I don't think this is going to go too well. This is probably going to end up having some noise. And a dead body kind of like falls over, scares her. She makes some noise. And now she's got one of the aliens on her. But just this whole sequence, I mean, I had my ass squeezed tight, and then of course, Cillian Murphy's character, Emmett, comes in and saves the day. But just a cool sequence, very intense, shot really, really well. And, just to talk more about, Regan and Emmett's character, now we get these moments from here on out where they start to spend a lot of time together. And of course, like, Regan can't communicate, in a normal way like most of us can, which Emmett, right after that whole sequence realizes right away. He's like, oh shit, right, I can't even talk to you, and Regan kind of like teaches him how to communicate if you don't know sign, right? Look at me, make sure you're enunciating and stuff like that. And I mentioned this in the first video, but from somebody who studied American Sign Language in college, this like really hits home to me because I realized, when I was interacting with people who can't hear, who do, communicate through sign language, there's such a connection you have with them through like the different techniques that you're using with sign language. Like I was always taught that you're supposed to look them in the eye and maintain that eye contact even while they're signing. Like don't, stare at the sign that they're doing, stare at the eyes. And it just creates such a like connection in a way. And just like the whole relationship between Emmett and Regan is just cool to watch. And it definitely created like a big connection between them two, definitely. Now, we definitely next need to talk about what I kind of call like the tripod moment in this movie. And why a tripod? Because essentially we've got like these 3 moments overlapping with each other. And then you've got us, like at the top, just witnessing all of this. You've got 3 moments that are very intense. All of the characters are in some degree of danger. You know what I mean? And it's just all going down, right? Marcus is trapped in the vaulty kind of a little thing with the screaming baby, which adds another layer to everything. And of course, Regan and Emmett run into this group of like banditos at the dock when they're trying to get a boat. And you're like, oh, damn, not only are there other people in the area, but these people don't look like they're doing too well. And then you've got Evelyn, who's out looking for supplies, and then she comes back to Marcus's whole mess and stuff like that. By the way, speaking of this group of bandits that they ran into, they look great too. I mean, they've got like the bloodshot eyes, like the torn up clothes, the weathered skin. Like it looks like a group of people you do not want to run into. But of course, after this, it's like, how are they going to get out of this? And Cillian Murphy's character, Emmett, is like, dive, telling Regan to dive, right? And we get that whole like, holy shit moment on the dock when Emmett takes the main guy, I guess, hostage, takes him back, puts him against the pole. And then we find out that these things can't swim. And then Emmett swims away. Regan picks him up out of the water, pulls him onto the boat. And then we see that Emmett had her hearing aid in his mouth the whole time to keep it from getting wet and whatnot. Now, this is a little bit off topic, but I love when movies that are so successful and then they come out with a sequel and they don't cut corners with the cast. I love that. They just put more chips in the middle and they just go for it. I mean, like Cillian Murphy, what an addition to this cast. He's amazing in this movie. Of course, he's been in a lot of other projects that are incredible, but just a great actor and such a good addition to this type of a movie. Then Regan and Emmett make it to the island and they see there's like a nice little group of people on the island. They're like, seem pretty friendly. They're giving them some supplies, some warmth, and they're essentially like, hey guys, I hope you're enjoying your little campfire and your marshmallows here, but if you've ever seen a post-apocalyptic movie before, you probably know that new people means that bad stuff is probably about to happen. And oh boy, does it. So one of the boats from earlier where one of the aliens jumped on the boat and was attacking people who were trying to get away, that boat, somehow just floats onto the island, essentially. And this alien thing starts going ham. So, and then eventually Regan, Emmett, and then the guy who's kind of like the leader of the island, they take off in the car that's on the island to try to lead this thing away, honking their horn. And they eventually make it to the radio station. Man, and that radio station scene, I mean, there's a scene there where Regan's climbing through that little window and, she's stepping over the spray can and then the coffee cup. Every single time she's coming across one of those little things, you're just like, you can't breathe for a second, and then you finally get to exhale, and then there's something new, and then it's just like, it's intense, for being a scene where not a lot of things are happening. You're just like, please don't step on that, please, you know what I mean? And it's a crazy, crazy scene, and they just happen to, step through the window of like the messiest bastard at the radio station. So guys, come on, keep your desks clean because you just never know, right? And to me, this scene definitely gives off some of those like Jurassic Park kitchen scene sort of vibes and stuff like that. And then, of course, their backs are against the wall. It seems like everything's kind of over for not only Emmett and Regan, but for the other group. But then, of course, the hearing aid comes in clutch once again. And this movie, it ends right there with both groups killing the alien that's, approaching them, about to kill them, using the hearing aid and stuff, because it gets played through the radio and back to the other group. And damn, just like the original, I wish is the second this movie ends, that I could immediately press play on the third movie. Now I know the movie that's coming out later this month is actually going to be, you know, like a spin-off sequel, so it's not going to directly lead after this movie. Although I have heard rumors, correct me in the comments if I'm wrong or if it has been confirmed, that we are actually going to get a Quiet Place Part 3, I guess in 2025, which would be amazing. Hopefully with, you know, a lot of the returning cast coming back, but still, like, just like in the original movie, they leave you on such a big cliffhanger. Not as big as the original movie, but still a cliffhanger, and just makes you want to press play on a third movie so bad right away, because I just want to follow these characters and continue this story. I want to see what happened on the island. And, you know, I assume Regan and Emmett are going to go off, you know, start heading back to the steel factory to meet up with everybody and figure out kind of the next steps and stuff like that. But yeah, I just want to see what else happens. So this movie, yes, has less stakes than the original. The original has some kills, of course, with the brother, of course, with the dad, that, you know, just kind of blow your mind and definitely creates that just stakes in the movie that makes you think that nobody's safe in this completely unforgiving world. And yes, this movie has less of that. I mean, they can't just kill off everybody. I mean, that, you know, gets a little bit hard when you're writing a story like this, but still, I mean, this movie, after watching it, when I think about it, I'm just like, this is just flat out just entertainment. It's just that movies like this remind me why I love movies. You can just feel like the passion from the production coming across on screen, you know, the passion that they have for this movie and creating something that's incredible. You can just feel that when you watch not only the first movie, but the second movie as well. But yeah, such a damn good sequel that blows me away and has so many things in it that I look for in a sequel. So thank you everybody for watching my review, my thoughts on A Quiet Place Part 2. Let me know down in the comments down below what you think about this movie, what you're looking forward to in the third movie. Are you excited for this kind of spin-off prequel? And are you looking forward to hopefully A Quiet Place Part 3, maybe in 2025? But anyways, everybody, make sure you subscribe if you enjoy horror content. And also check out one of these videos next to me if you want some more content from me right now. But anyways, my name is Matt, and I will talk to you in the next one.